Hello everyone, my name's Sam, welcome back to Carbonwurks. Today I'm going to walk you through fitting this G-Series flow-through spoiler to our F-Series M4, well, customer's F-Series M4 today. So we're going to be using our unique fitting kit which marries this spoiler to that car, which is soon to be available to you guys, so great news. This is going to be a product spotlight, basically walking you through the kit and then how I fit it to the car. So stay tuned. So laid out before us here we have the kit. Obviously first and foremost you've got the flow-through wing itself, which is self-explanatory. So this bolts through the boot lid of the car, which on the F-Series is fiberglass. So I'm going to be drilling four holes in the boot lid, which will then marry this spoiler to this fitting kit here, which is the star of the show. So this fitting kit we've developed in-house, I've designed it myself. We've then had it manufactured by a UK engineering company we work quite closely with, and as you can see it looks shiny and pretty, so it's a bit of a shame it's going to be hiding behind the boot carpet. But what you've got essentially is a series of parts here which are going to connect the wing directly to the hinges and the hinge mounts on the boot spoiler, just to take the load off the composite panel itself. So whilst we have done this fitment of the spoiler to these cars in a slightly different way before, we've now upgraded it to be as good as it possibly can be using our own unique fitting kit. So these blocks mount into the hinge itself, then you've got the strengthening brackets, and then laterally these blocks here which will then go through the void in the middle of the two skins of the boot lid, coupled with these brackets, all bolted together, makes it super strong and rigid, and absolutely no worries that it's going to put any stress or load onto the composite boot lid panel. So the last thing is this rolled up template here. So this is my workshop template, which makes sure that the holes I drill in the boot lid are in the right place, which is always good. You guys will receive a brand new fresh template to go with your kit should you choose to buy this for your car. I think that just about covers everything. Anything that I've missed I'll probably pick up in the video. But we'll move on. Next step, I'll talk you through some of the tools that we'll need just to get this job through. Okay, so I'll give you a quick rundown now of the tools that you're likely to need to get this fitting done. So the main part is in the middle here, which is the drilling section. You can check out, we've got a recommended list on Amazon that Tim's going to be setting up of the tools that will again feature here, or that will help you get through something exactly the same. But as far as the hole saws are concerned, the main sizes we're concerned by are a 22mm and a 64mm is what I use from that kit for this job. We've then got a standard set of, these are high-speed steel drill bits, but standard drill bits in there. These are lock-in collars to stop me going too deep through the top of the panel itself. They're an optional thing, you don't have to have them. Obviously the drill itself. Then moving on from there, we've got Allen keys and Allen key sockets, which are to secure all the fastenings on the fitting kit. Little ratchet for that there. Step back quickly for the drill. I've also got an automatic center punch, which is very handy in these sort of situations, so that's there. We've got a few trim tools here and a screwdriver for removal of the boot lid liner, which is the first part of the job. Small selection of hand files there just to clean up any burred edges on the steel boot hinges once we've drilled them. But primarily, or the first task is over here, which we've got some protection film and masking tape, which we're going to use to cover up all the areas around where I'll be working on the car, just to make sure A, we don't get a load of fiberglass dust inside the boot, and B, no marking to the paint anywhere that we don't want it. Lastly, you might need to speak to your mum for this one. I've got a fabric tape measure here, so although the template that we've done is quite highly accurate, I always double check the measurements because you only get one go at drilling the holes in the boot lid. So yeah, it's not just for checking my inside leg measurement, I will be using that to make sure the template is exactly where it needs to be. So like I say, check out our Amazon listing, it will have the likes of the hole saws and stuff listed there for you if you're unsure. And as I said, first step, I'll be getting busy with this window film here, protective, which we lay over the paint on all our jobs to keep it fresh, with some masking tape as well. Okay, so step one is to protect the paint around the area in which we're working. Sean's car's got some lovely individual Grigio Telesto grey paint, hopefully I've got that about right. But yeah, so we use this window film here, which we wrap around the car and the paintwork to make sure it leaves here in the same condition it arrived. So I'm going to get set to it and get this covered up now, but we're going to go across the back window, along the paint, and also what I'm going to do is cover off the opening into the boot area so that any of the swarf and the fiberglass from when we're drilling doesn't then end up in the carpeted area. Point to note is that we've actually quickly washed this car before because it was covered in a lot of road salt and stuff like that, and ideally you don't want that trapped under the film that we're using. So we just quickly wash the car over, which is why it looks as good as it does, and it also means I'm ready to lay this film down. So I'll get that done now and then we can get onto the fitting. As you can see, the car is all now protected, film around the bumper, wings, etc. Anywhere that I'm going to be working up against the car or near it. Deliberately left the boot lid clear because we're going to have to put the template on, all that sort of thing, and actually where we need to start is inside. So as you can see, we've also loosely fitted some film there, which is going to stop all the drilling, swarf, etc. making its way into the boot area. So first things first, we need to take the boot liner off, take this trim down. You've also got the 2 hinge trims which just need to be dropped. So if you just start off with a small flat blade screwdriver, there's 2 clips on the back of these trims. If you release those, 1 and 2, and then pull it down, that allows, well, what you can actually do is take it out completely. So we'll do that side and this side as well. Following on from that, you've then also got the warning triangle and the brackets there, which are held in, so lose the warning triangle itself, and then you've got 2 Phillips screws in here holding those brackets on, and also with that holding the trim liner on. So 1 bracket, 2 brackets removed. And then lastly, that leaves us a series of trim clips, so 4 across the top here and 2 at the back there. One's already actually missing there. So these do have the appearance of a Phillips screw. What you will find is that you probably won't be able to undo them all the way out. So my usual process, if I show you on this one, is with the aid of the Phillips screwdriver, just get them started. This one's already not having a good time. And then after that, you should be able to get your trim clip behind the head of the screw. Now I'm struggling on this one. So if you can get the trim tool behind the head of the clip, like say, you need to pull the center pin out and then the mushroom behind will follow. So I'll show you again on this one. So with the trim clip tool, get behind the head of the mushroom and remove as such. So that's all the fixings now removed. It should just mean that you can pull away the carpet. So things to note, it hooks around these 2 buffer stops here, so you will just have to help it out, and then these scoops here hook into the handle part of the boot lid. The carpet splits around the hinges, so you can just pop that off and then put that to one side. So with the preparations done and out of the way, we are now onto the first step of the fitting section of this job, which involves this template here. So this is my workshop one, as I explained earlier, which is why it's got a load of drawings and ramblings on it. Most of it is relevant, to be fair now, but essentially you guys will get a fresh one should you order this to do at home. What I've done first is quickly offer up the template and just get a rough location to put the 2 section of masking tape down where I'm going to be drilling through the boot lid, just to offer again the most amount of protection I can to the paint whilst I'm working with the boot lid. Also something to note, if you're not intending to keep your boot lip spoiler fitted, if you've got one, now would be the time to remove it, get it out of the way, because what I have noticed with this particular one, which the customer has chosen to keep, is that with the template in place it does overlap slightly, but I should be able to work around that, and that's fine. With the template itself, it lines up here at the front edge of the boot lid, both sides, and then again it's measured exactly to the width of the boot lid, so it matches up at the sides. There are measurements physically on the template which you can then check with the fabric tape measure to make sure it's fully centralized and in the right place. But for the main part, it is a exact 1-for-1 copy of this template, which I've used several times already and I know lands the drill holes in exactly the right place. So I'm going to offer this up to the boot lid, double check my location, make sure I'm happy with where it sits. I've then got some low tack masking tape which I'm going to use, as you can see here, I've already used once before, to secure it down to the boot lid, and then I'll be ready to mark the holes and drill. So this brings us pretty much to the point of no return. Template, as you can see, is all laid up, tied down with masking tape. Double check the measurements afterwards, as I said, with the 2 tape measures that I've got. making sure that it's centrally from side to side and the measurements are the same at each side from the leading edge of the spoiler, leading edge of the boot lid, sorry. There are some dimensions on this template which are transferred over to the ones that will come out to you guys should you order this kit, which will help you in confirming that all the dimensions are correct. So all that leaves is to transfer the holes markings from the template through onto the boot lid using some sort of center punch device to mark where you're going to drill. So this is an automated center dot punch. So all I'm going to do is line it up with the point on the template, and then if I push, you'll hear the audible click which will say that the mechanism has done its job and transferred a center punch dot mark into the boot lid. And 4, so that's all 4 done, and that's literally as simple as that. So I'm now ready to take the template back off. I can drill the holes, and then the next step will take us through to the underside of the boot lid. So now we're going to tackle, or I'm going to tackle, the most dangerous part of the job, which is drilling through the boot lid. So obviously once this has been done, it can't be undone without spending a few pounds at a body shop. So it's best to make sure you're 100% happy where you're drilling these holes. As always, start with a nice small pilot hole, so that's a 2.5mm drill bit in there. Just a nice small hole on a slow speed will get you through the first bit of the boot lid and get you started. In terms of what hole size we need, so eventually the hole size on the top skin needs to be 12mm. What we need is a larger hole for clearance on the inner skin. So initially you need to go up to the same size as the pilot drill in your hole saw kit, which for this particular kit is a 7mm. So on the outer skin I'm going to drill up to a 7mm drill, which will then allow me to go from the inner skin and pilot hole through in the right place to get the clearance holes made through the inner skin. So again, to run you quickly through, small hole, pilot hole to start off with. It'll go through quite quickly because it's fiberglass. It caught me out the very first time I drilled one of these. I thought the thing had just turned to dust, but it turns out it was just fiberglass. So small pilot hole, working up to 7mm, which will then leave us ready to go onto the inside skin, drill the clearance holes for the mounting brackets, and then we can come back to the outer skin at the very last, finish up to a 12mm hole, which is the required size for the mounting boss in the kit. So pilot hole it is. We've got the center punch locations on here. Now it might help to have a second pair of eyes, but what you need to basically aim to do when you're drilling these holes is keep the drill as vertical from all sides as physically possible, because what will eventually happen is you'll drill through the top skin, through the gap between and into the inner skin, which will then give you the pilot hole for drilling the clearance holes in the inner skin. Lots of holes, lots of drilling. Ultimately what we're going to end up is with the spoiler fitted. So lined up, drill speed on slow, keeping it nice and vertical. So I've drilled all 4 pilot holes now. A point of note at this stage is that the frontmost hole, there is very, very minimal gap between the inner and outer skins of the boot lid. So you'll find you'll drill through the top skin and then you'll almost immediately be drilling through the inner skin. You want to drill through both, that's absolutely fine. So that one's easy. The rear one has got a larger gap between the 2 skins, so you'll feel yourself drill through the top skin first. You then want to make sure your vertical alignment is good, ready for when you drill through the second skin. And then, as before, you want to be drilled through both skins for your pilot hole on the secondary skin. So that is what you need to be doing. It's just a case of stopping midway to make sure your alignment's good before you then punch through on the second hole. With that done, you move up a couple of mil in drill bit size. Step by step, do all 4 holes until you get up to the same size as the pilot hole in your hole saw, which for me is 7mm. So I'm going to do that now. I'll just work through all 4 holes until I'm up to 7mm and we'll be ready to the next step. That's 4 holes now drilled in the boot lid from the top side. So this is where the spoiler will mount through. Next step takes us to the inside of the boot lid, where we should have 4 holes which have been drilled through from the outside. So these are the pilot holes which we're going to use to make clearance holes in the inner secondary skin only for the, if I grab the parts which are behind me. This is the mounting boss that bolts up to the spoiler through the to the top skin. So what we need to do is make a clearance hole for this part, which is 20mm in diameter, through the inner skin so that it can bolt right up to the bottom of the outer skin. So on this, what is the foremost hole in the boot lid, or the lower one with the lid upright as it is, needs to be just big enough to take this, which is, like I say, I'm going to use a 22mm hole saw to make a clearance hole. And the top one also needs to have clearance for the bracket system, so this needs a much larger hole because of the raised section here. So that's going to be a 64mm hole. So we're using this hole here as a pilot hole, which is why I've drilled it the same as the pilot drill in the hole saw. Top one large 64mm, bottom one smaller 22mm, just to take this. This is where you need to be really careful to only drill through the primary skin. So nice and steady, slow as you go with the hole saw will allow you to feel once you've cut through. So just take it a bit at a time, just cut a bit more away until you start to see it break through the first skin, because what you really don't want to do is end up with a 64mm hole all the way through. So I'll get cracking now. I'll show you my process for doing it on the actual boot lid in question. So we'll lose the 7mm drill bit from before. Put the hole saw in here. So this is loaded up with the previously discussed 22mm hole saw. So you could go slightly bigger than that if you want to give yourself a bit more clearance, but I know from the last one that I fitted, 22mm is enough. So steady. The key thing here is to try and keep the drill axis perpendicular to the boot lid. So initially it's going to be quite difficult because you can see it's going to come into contact with this chamfered edge here first. So again, I'll reiterate, the key point here is to go slow and steady. So I'm just part way through drilling this first clearance hole here, just to give you guys an idea of what you're looking for. So you can see where this chamfered edge here is. The hole saw has already started to go through this bit first and has cut away the most material, but what you can also see is that I'm not quite perpendicular because I've started to cut through the paint here on this side but not on this side. So that's the sort of telltale signs you need to be looking out for when you're drilling through. It means that I just need to tilt the drill down ever so slightly to make sure it's perfectly flat to the panel. And like I say, go through slow and steady. Eventually you'll get to the point where you see that you've cut through the first skin. That's all we're looking to do, is cut this hole out of the first skin, not the top skin, and that'll give us the clearance we need for the fitting kit. So first clearance hole done. So as you can see, you can now see the white of the underside of the top skin. So I've cut through the first skin only, right through, and that's come away. So that's perfect, that's exactly how it needs to be. You can then repeat that on the second side. For the purposes of this video, we're going to work on this side and get this side done. So I've now upgraded to the large bit, 64mm. This one's a bit more difficult because you've got a number of chamfered edges here and stuff. Again, can't reiterate enough, slow and steady is the way forward. You've got your pilot hole there with the drill in the center. So what we're looking for is you get it lined up and centered, push down to meet the actual panel, and then all that you're looking to do is just slowly start to drill. Again, trying to keep it as perpendicular to the panel as possible. So just to give you an idea of the contours of this part here, so this is me, as you can see, part way through the drilling process. I've actually already cut through all the way through the inner skin from here right round to around here. And then this bit here is only partly through the fiberglass. It's nothing to worry about, you just need to keep on going. Eventually this pilot hole, as with the first hole that we drilled through here, the pilot drill will poke through the hole in the outer skin, which will mean that you've lined up perfectly, which is ideal. That's exactly what we want. So for now, I'm just going to carry on going slow and steady, keeping the drill as perpendicular as possible to the panel. And the last bit, when it gets down to this last bit here, just take a bit of extra caution. Just go a bit at a time, because eventually when you get to the very last bit, this center, the wasted material in the middle will snap out and it might just cause the drill to kick slightly. So just be aware of that. So that's all 4 holes now prepared. This is what you should be left with afterwards. I did myself actually catch the underside of the outer skin just lightly on both sides. So that goes to show just how sort of exacting and precise this part of the fitting procedure is, but it's all done. You end up with a couple of waste bits like this if that's all gone to plan. The whole idea is that it allows this mounting boss here to offer up straight to the underside of the outer skin, which is then going to sandwich the outer skin between the spoiler and this boss. The thing to note is that you do have a spigot on the top of the boss, which is 11mm in diameter. So at the moment with my 7mm hole, it's not going to go through. So the next step, or the final step of the drilling through the boot lid, is to shut the boot lid again, and then drilling from the top. We're going to open up that hole to 12mm just to give a bit of wiggle room, tolerance, so that the spigot can go through the hole, and then this the larger top face of this boss can be sandwiching, can bolt right up to the boot lid and sandwich the panel between the two parts. So for that, I'm going to use this step drill. The last row on the step drill is actually 12, so that's quite handy. It just means I need to go all the way through. Purpose of using a step drill is purely to avoid having to change the drill bit every 2 seconds. It goes up in 1mm increments, so it'll be nice and easy work going through the fiberglass. So load that up in the drill. Again, point of note is just to make sure that you're as perpendicular as possible to the panel, to make sure the hole stays nice and central. Slow speed. Work my way through, that's hole number 1. And that's that, easy as that. So at this point you can stop and have a bit of a breather, sigh of relief that you've managed to get this far without any mishaps. So it's left us with 4 holes, 12mm drilled in the outer skin, which will accept the spigot that I previously talked about on the top of the boss. And then going back inside the bonnet, inside the boot, should I say, you've got your clearance holes for the brackets and the fitting kit to then mate up to the bottom face of the outer skin. So that is everything in the top section of the boot lid done and prepped for the fitting. The next step is that we'll mock up the fitment of the spoiler itself. The spoiler will go on with the spigots. We'll then be able to mock up the reinforcement brackets, and that will take us to the second stage of drilling, which is to go through these hinge brackets here to mount our reinforcement brackets on pretty much as direct as we can to the car. So now has come the time to mock up, fit the spoiler with the riser bosses. So with the help of a glamorous assistant, what I'm going to do is, with the bolt in this one boss ready to go, spoiler in hand, we're going to offer it up to the correct side of the boot lid. Line up the holes with the mounting points on the spoiler. Give it a wiggle, make sure it's centralised. That's that side. And same again on this side. Just nipping it up hand tight at the moment. So we've got all 4 in position. The last one. That's that stage pretty much complete. So for those of you who'll be asking, 4mm Allen key socket was what I used for the bolts to mount the spoiler. The next part of the bracket system is these adjoining plates. So they slide up and down on these pegs. The idea is it gives a little bit of adjustment just to the 2 different types. So what I will be coming to tell you shortly is that there are 2 different hinge types on the F series platform. This one is the open hinge type, which requires the mounting block that we've got in our kit. So I'll go through that shortly, but for now these adjoining plates go on. These are the reason why we need such a large clearance hole at the top here, because as you can see these just about slot into them. So initially what I tend to do is just push them on to the mounting dowels so that they're flush with the end of the dowel. There's then a small Allen grub screw in the side, which is a 2mm hex. So I get a 2mm Allen key, and I'll just nip those up so that they are held in position, ready for the next step. So there's 2 per dowel in each mounting bracket. So at this stage all that's required is just a gentle nip to hold them in place, flush with the end of the dowel. So that's those 2. That's those 2. And then repeat again on the same on the other side, ready to fit the strengthening brace. So with the adjoining brackets fitted and bolted up, we now need to draw our attention, or your attention, to the strengthening plates which connect the spoiler mount to the boot hinge area, and then these mounting blocks which go into the open style boot hinge that we have on this M4. So these are handed. Well, both sections are handed, so these are handed. You'll also notice that they've got an offset location for the holes, so they should sit in here, and the holes should be further towards the top as you look at it now than they are to the bottom. This is actually the left one because the twin bolt holes go on the outside, or at least that's how I mount it, and then the singular bolt hole goes on the inside. It just makes it easier for drilling, but also what you'll notice here is that there's a wiring securing trim clip there, which if you were to have it the other way around would foul the second hole. So if we have it that way, there's no confliction with pre-existing holes. We are going to have to remove that trim clip, so one of the trim tools from earlier will take care of that. So if we just pop this out, what we do is there's a sticky back cable tie mount which you can then use to secure that to the side of the hinge, which will prevent it from rubbing through on any of the bracketry we're about to fit. We'll show you that at the end. But for now, what we need to do is mock up the location of the mounting blocks so that we can then drill through the side of the hinges to bolt them in secure to the hinge itself. So returning to the mounting blocks we were talking about just a second ago, as you can see I've got the first one fitted here. Say fitted in the loosest terms, it's held on by the double sticky tape on the back. So basically the positioning of it is within the confines of the hinge here, there's a raised section at the back, so it sits perfectly in the middle of the assembly, so it'd be in the middle of the 2 bolt locations as well. So you can see here you've got this raised section between here and here, and that's where you're looking to put it in the end of. So again, paying attention to the fact that the offset holes need to be mounted as far upward as possible. Peel the backing off the double-sided tape, and then I'm going to eyeball it. You're welcome to measure it. If you stick it on in the middle, what we can then do is look to make the measurements and markings on the side of the hinge brackets to then drill through and put the securing bolts in place. So what I'm going to take you through now is a process I use for marking up the hole locations for this mounting block. So on the block itself is marked the lines for the position of the mounting holes, and then what I know is that from this top face here downwards the mounting holes are 16mm to the centre. So I'm going to use this vernier caliper here to mark the 16mm line. So it's just going to leave a light indentation on the masking tape that I fitted on the side of the hinge here. So that's this side. There's also one on the inside as well, so I'll do that now. That's both sides marked, and then all that's needed is a straight edge or a square which can go up to the inner face of the boot lid to square off to the marked lines for the hole location, and then that will give you the centre of the hole which you can then centre punch and drill. So with all those markings done, I now know where the centres of my mounting holes are. So all that leaves is for me to centre punch the locations and then drill through the brackets so I'm able to bolt into the mounting block itself. So I'll centre punch these now. I'll then be able to peel off the mounting blocks so I don't drill through into the hole. Drill the holes, all 6 of them, and then all being well I should be able to bolt the mounting block straight down, final fit with Loctite, and then it'll be ready for me to fit the strengthening plates. So it's time for our friend the drill again. This time we're going to be drilling through the hinges. These are steel, so it will take a bit more effort. So start with a small drill bit again. It's 3mm on this one. I mark the holes, centre punch them, remove the block, because what we don't want to do is start drilling into the threaded hole in the block. And lastly, I've taped up this edge, painted edge of the boot lid here, because this is always on show, so the last thing we want to do is mark the lovely paint. So that's about all the preparations done. All that's left is for me to now drill the hole through. Again, as before, best efforts to make sure you remain perpendicular to the flat face of the hinge when you're doing this. It is quite tight for the two holes on the outside here, so you will end up at a slight angle on the upper hole. The alternative is to take the whole boot lid off, which with the wiring is a little bit of a task. So we're opting to do it in situ. If you want to be super safe, then you could take the boot lid off to give you all the space to do it. But this isn't the first time I've done it. I know that it can be done, so I'm going to carry on, get this done. So with the holes now drilled in the boot hinge, a bit of paint on them to stop them corroding, deburred the hole edges as well, just to take any of the sharp swarf material away. We're ready to fit this mounting block, so that's going to go in there. 2 bolts on the outside, 1 from the inside, so that's 3 of the M6 bolts total supplied in the kit. We're going to Loctite them in place as well, just because this is the final fit, they're not going to come back out. So what we'll do is just put a bit of Loctite on them now. And one by one, install the bolts in the mounting block. Okay, so that's all 3 bolts now installed with Loctite. Let's just nip them up. I'm using a 1/4 drive ratchet here just to nip them up. They're only going into aluminium, the M6 in size, so they don't need to be wrenched up tight with a breaker bar, because, well, ultimately you'll probably round out the bolt, which isn't ideal because you'll never get it out again. Nip that up single-handedly with one short 1/4 drive ratchet. So I'm using one Allen key, is just as good. Third and final bolt, and that's your mounting block installed, ready to fit the supporting bracket between the 2 parts of the mounting kit. So the final piece of the jigsaw puzzle is this mounting plate, which joins the 2 halves of the kit together. So that goes between there and there. Same as the mounting block, uses the M6 domed head bolts, and again with our friend Mr. Loctite there to make sure they don't rattle themselves loose. Again, going into an aluminium thread, so no need to go mental on the tightness of them, just nip them down enough to hold it secure. Something to note as well, which will come with the kit, so where this wiring fixing here has to be removed for the block to go in, we supply a cable tie mount, which will then allow you to re-secure it slightly lower down the hinge, which will stop it rubbing through on the bracket when it's in its installed position. So with the full kit installed, we now know everything is mounted up and working as it should. The last thing to do is make the permanent fix with the spoiler on the top side. So you remember when we mocked up earlier, we didn't peel back the tape at the bottom of the risers. So just unbolt 2 bolts each side, unbolt the spoiler, pull the tape off, seal it back down to the boot lid. That will prevent any external elements like rain leaking in under the spoiler. And then final check of all the fixings, grub screws and mounting bolts for the spoiler, make sure that you're all happy they're all tight. And then once that's done, you can seal it all off, hide it all away behind the interior trim that we took off right at the very start. So we won't show you that. It's a simple case reverse of pop it back in, put your trim clips back in and mount the warning triangle holder in the centre, and it'll be as if nobody's been there. And there you have it, a complete installation of a G8X wing on an FX chassis. So things to note, this kit is individual to us at Carbonwurks. We've exclusively designed it. It's mutually exclusive to our G8X wing, so you can't order the kit without the wing, which, let's be fair, the kit would be pretty useless without the wing. So hit up our website, we'll put some links in somewhere. Tim, over to you on that one. Yeah, it's all fitted up. It's the first revision of our kit, so there's a couple of little bits we're going to tidy up with it, but overall we're happy. And like I say, it's ready, available to order now. Check out our website. It's ready to install, obviously. We've done this car. This is the second one in the last week that we've done. So that's great for us, great for you, because it means it's ready for you guys as well. I think that just about covers everything. Obviously, retention of the original boot lip spoiler is optional. This customer's opted to keep it. We think it looks quite good actually, particularly on this car, as it's quite stealth tinted out around the vehicle as well, so it helps with a bit of contrast against the nice grey paint. All that's left is to say thanks for staying tuned in this far. Like, share, subscribe as always is greatly appreciated, and stay tuned for our next F-Series product.